Sahana Vavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Saha Viryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Samasta Jana Kalyane Niratam Karunamayam Namami Chinmayam Devam Sadguru Brahma Vidvaram. Okay, so this year in Bal Vihar, we are taking up this text called Upadesha Sara. Upadesha Sara. And this text is a very beautiful text. Sara means essence. Upadesha means teaching. So this is the essential teaching of Vedanta. So how many of you are new to Vedanta? Okay. So even whether you're new to Vedanta or have listened to Vedanta before, this is a great text because this expounds on the 4 different paths, on Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, Raja Yoga, and Jnana Yoga. So through this book, we'll get a clear picture of all of that. Now, before we enter into the text, I wanted to talk today a little bit about the author of the text. The commentary is given by Swami Tejomayananda ji, but the original text is given by someone known as Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi ji. How many of you have heard his name? Okay, few of you. So this is his picture. If you have not seen him or have not heard of him, this is who he is, Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi ji. And just to speak about him, because he's a great saint in the tradition of Advaita Vedanta, and he's very recent. He was born in 1879, and he was born in Tamil Nadu, in this village called Tiruchoi. And very interesting in his family, it just so happened that there was a beggar that had come to their family, and the beggar was refused. So the beggar cursed them that in every generation they're going to have a beggar, a wandering beggar. So anyway, in this family, beautiful family, 4 children were born. And he was the second child. And he was an ordinary child. You know, not like a saint kind of child, like, you see that child and they're very, very saintly. He was a regular child. He went to school, he did sports, he interacted with his friends, he played games. But he was not interested in studies. There was something though about him, something within him that said that Arunachala, this place Arunachala, is special. Something drew him to Arunachala. Now, you know that in our lives also, sometimes that happens to us. Sometimes we're drawn to some person or we're drawn to some place. We don't even know why. We feel like we have to go there. We're just drawn. We feel like we have to meet that person. So like that, he was drawn to this Arunachala. And one day, when his uncle was visiting, and he asked him, his name when he was a young boy was Venkataraman. And Venkataraman asked him, "Where did you come from?" And the uncle said, "Arunachala." And his eyes glistened because he didn't know where this Arunachala was. He had not met anyone from that place, and his heart just was beating so fast. And he said, "Where is this Arunachala?" And the uncle said, "It's in this place called Tiruvannamalai in Tamil Nadu." So he felt drawn and immediately wanted to go to that place at some point in time. But he was still young. He was still in his teens. Now another time, he was reading these books. Sometimes there's books around the house. That's why it's always good to have spiritual books around your house. And he came across this book called Periya Purana about all the Tamil Shaivite saints. And when he read that book, devotion filled his heart. He was just awestruck. And he was so curious about that kind of life. So like this, these little awakenings came. But a really big awakening came when he was 16. And I'm going to read that awakening to you because it's best when it's in his own words. This is a book that I read on him. It's called The Path, Ramana Maharshi and the Path of Self-Knowledge. It's a really nice book. So here he says that he was lying alone in a room in his uncle's house. And he seldom had any sickness or anything like that, but he was just lying down. All of a sudden, a fear of death overtook me. This is his writing. There was nothing in my state of health to account for it, and I did not try to account for it or to find out whether there was any reason for the fear. I just felt I am going to die and began thinking what to do. The shock of fear of death drove my mind inwards, and I said to myself mentally, without actually framing the words, now death has come. What does it mean? What is dying? And I dramatized the occurrence of death. I lay with my limbs stretched out stiff and imitated a corpse. I held my breath and kept my lips tightly closed so that no sound could escape. So his body was lying dead, as though stiff, very stiff, like a corpse. His breath was held. And then I said to myself, this body is dead. It will be carried stiff to the burning ground and there burned and reduced to ashes. But with the death of the body, am I dead? Is the body I? It is silent and inert, but I feel the full force of my personality and even the voice of I apart from it. So I am the spirit transcending the body. The body dies, but the spirit that transcends it cannot be touched by death. That means I am the deathless spirit. All this was not a dull thought. It flashed through me vividly as a living truth which I perceived directly, almost without thought process. I was something real, and all conscious activity connected with my body was centered on that I. From that moment onwards, the I or self focused attention on itself by a powerful fascination. Fear of death had vanished once and for all. Absorption in the self continued unbroken from that time on. So, when he was 16, he had this experience. That his body was like a corpse, his breath was held, and yet there was something there which was beyond his body, which was beyond his breath, which was that sense of I, that pure consciousness or awareness. And he had that so naturally. He didn't read any scripture, nothing. Nobody told him anything. It was his direct experience. And after that awakening, he was always connected to that sense of I. He knew he was beyond the body. So his interactions with people changed. When people used to talk to him, he used to also speak back. Now he did not. He had read his likes and dislikes, he let go of. He just ate whatever came to him. Whatever was supposed to be done, he did. He was very, very aloof from the world because he was just centered on this I. And when he went to school, although he had great memory, really great memory, he was not interested in school anymore. He was just interested in this experience that he had. And so he would barely study. And once, the teacher gave him an imposition, because he did not do his homework. He had to write something 3 times, like detention. So he was at home, sitting in his room, and he was writing it once, writing it twice, and after that, he said, I'm done. He just shrugged. He's like, what is this? And his brother looked at him and said, why are you into all of this? This thing is not meant for someone like you. His brother just made a comment. And something just clicked, and he said, yeah, this life is not for me. I don't need this. And immediately, he thought of something. And he told his brother, I have to go to school. I have to take a special class. But in his mind, he was going to leave. He was going to leave. So his brother said, take these 5 rupees, and on the way to school, you pay my fees. And he looked at the 5 rupees. And he's thinking that, am I going to use all of this? He writes a note, very beautiful note. I'll read it to you. He writes a note to his family. I have set out in quest of my father in accordance with his command. It is on a virtuous enterprise that this has embarked. Therefore, let none grieve over this act, and let no money be spent in search of this. Your college fees have not been paid. 2 rupees are enclosed herewith. So he felt like he was going. And he felt he needed 3 rupees, so he put back 2 rupees in the envelope. And he said, this is it. I have set out on a quest. And very interestingly, he says, it is on a virtuous enterprise that this has embarked. He doesn't even call himself I. He doesn't call his body I. He said, this has embarked on a quest. And don't spend any money in search of this. Don't waste your time. And he put this letter and he left. And where did he set off to? Tiruvannamalai. He went on a train. Whatever money he had, he spent it for a train ticket and he went. He got on a train, and at some point he got off, was walking, wandering to Tiruvannamalai. On his way, luckily, some people fed him, some people gave him things. He had some golden earrings. He pawned those earrings to help him get more money to get on his way. And finally, after some time, he reached Tiruvannamalai. And he went to a Shiva temple there. And as soon as he got there, he felt home. He said, this is it. This is where I belong. And it just, as he was going to the temple, they asked him, do you want your tuft removed? He had like a tuft. He was a young boy. And he said, yes. So his hair was shaven. He had a sacred thread. He took that out. He was wearing a dhoti. He tore the dhoti into a loincloth. So you see Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's pictures later on. He's in a loincloth. He let everything go. And he sat there in the temple. He sat, and he immediately went into samadhi. When he was sitting in this temple, people were making fun of him, stoning him, etc. He moved underneath, down the pillar of the temple, downstairs where there's snakes, scorpions, all kinds of things. He sat there. For a long time he sat and he meditated. And someone found him. And when they found him, they found that his skin had been bitten. He had not eaten for days. And they just took him out, they cleaned him, they fed him, and they took care of him. And like this, he lived for many years. He was silent. He didn't really talk. He was silent and he just moved from place to place, sitting, and he was lost in the self. Now, meanwhile, his mother was frantic. Where did my son go? So the mother came. Uncle came in search of him. And the mother found him. But he did not go back with his mother. He wrote a note that whatever will happen is meant to happen. Whatever is not to happen will not happen. Therefore, the best thing is to remain silent. He stayed there. People came to see him. There was this one man very interested in knowing who am I really? And so, this Venkataramana, he wrote answers to the questions. And those answers that he wrote were later published into a book called Who Am I? So if anybody wants to read Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi's works, this Who Am I book is a very beautiful one. Very short, very simple. And slowly, people started knowing about him, crowding about him. Because this some Mahatma, some saint, very radiant, so blissful, so serene, so quiet. This one man by the name of Kavya Kanta Ganapati Muni came to see him. Such a renowned scholar. He studied everything. He knew all of these paths. He studied the Puranas, the Upanishads, everything. He went to Venkataramana's feet and he said, I pray to you. I have studied everything. I have learned everything. I still have not found my peace. Please speak. Please tell me, what am I to do? How can I attain this peace? I have done everything. That's when Venkataramana spoke. And he said, find out the source of the I thought. Find out the source of the I thought. Whatever thought is there, I thought, go to the source of that. And when you abide in that, you will find your peace. And so this Kavya Kanta Ganapati Muni said, this is no ordinary man. From this point on, let us call him by the name of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. And that's how he got his name. And this Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi ji, slowly, as people flocked towards him, there's one man by the name of Paul Brunton. He wrote this book called Search of Secret India. He went to India, to our own Bharat, and he met many saints and sages. He wrote one whole section on Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi ji, and so more and more people came to him. And so as the following increased, an ashram developed. The ashram is still there now, in Tiruvannamalai, and that's where he stayed. And he spent a lot of his life in silence. In silence, he would sit. And people would come in front of him just to feel his silence, because they felt that in his silence they were cleansed. And anyone that came to him, his only question was, who are you? So somebody would say, I am sad, I am going through this. He would say, who is going through this? Who is going through this? Who is sad? Who is having this experience? Who is having this loss? He would always point it back. Ask the question, who are you? And when you ask this question deeply, it's the body that's going through it. It's the mind that's going through it. It's the ego, but it's not the self. The self is ever free. And that way, he gave counsel to many. There are books on him. They are called Day by Day with Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi, or talks by Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. Just informal talks that he would give when people would see him. And as he learned scriptures, because people would bring scriptures to him, he would read them. And when he would read them, he would say, oh, this is exactly what I'm experiencing. So it's not like he studied scriptures. When he read scriptures, then he said, that's exactly what I understood. That's exactly what I am living. And he learned to communicate with people. His mother tongue is Tamil, but he learned Sanskrit, he learned Malayalam, he learned Telugu. And not only that, when you go to his ashram, he communicated with animals. He had a cow named Lakshmi that he really cared for. And monkeys also would come in front of him. Monkeys would come, squirrels would come. All animals loved to be in his presence. Everyone loved to be in his presence. There was something deep, very, very deep about him. And so that's how he lived. And where he lived in Tiruvannamalai, that great Arunachala hill is right there. And as his sadhana, he would walk around the hill, barefoot. He would walk around. It takes some 3-4 hours to walk around that hill. And people still do it today. It's called Giri Pradakshina, barefoot. It's quite painful, but quite nice also. And joy, sorrow, same in one same line. And they do that pradakshina over the hill as a offering to Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. And when you go to his ashrama, that Skanda ashrama, the cave where he used to meditate, is still there. And the Virupaksha cave, both those caves, they're still there. And in his later years, both his mother and his brother came to join him. And they stayed with him and lived that spiritual life. So he took care of his mother, he took care of his brother also. Towards later part of his life, he got cancer, sarcoma, under his arm. And even then, he was very, very serene, very serene. The doctors tried to remove it several times, it kept coming back. Now, on one occasion, the doctor came and was going to put the anesthesia on him to remove it. And Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi said, "What is that?" The doctor said, "Anesthesia." He said, "I don't need it." No. The doctor said, "Okay, I'm not going to argue with a Mahatma. I'll just do whatever I'm supposed to do." And he started his operation. And in between, when he was literally cutting the skin, he said, "Oh my God, I forgot to put anesthesia. This must be really painful." But he looked at the face of Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji. It was absolutely in peace. And he could not understand how that same peaceful face has this body which is in pain. He could not understand it. And he said, this must be a real Mahatma. He was disconnected from his body completely. And so his devotees wanted to find all ways to cure him. You know, the body going through cancer, so many things were happening. He said, "Why are you trying to make this body live longer? It has to die at some point. Let it die, but I, the deathless spirit, will never die. I will always be with you." And like that, very peacefully, left his body at the age of 71. And even if he left his body, still his spirit remains. Very much so when you go to that place in Tiruvannamalai. I've been there several times. You can feel his presence there. And his samadhi is there. And also the room where he sat in is there. So people sit there and meditate. So it is this Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi Ji who has written Upadesha Sara. So it's come from that kind of spiritual depth, that kind of Mahatma that has given us these verses. Right? So he has written, a book also called Sadarshana, very beautiful book. It's written on Ribhu Gita, on the Bhagavad Gita also, selected verses. And Upadesha Sara is one which is so crisp, so clear, and it contains everything. And how this Upadesha Sara came about was, one devotee came to him and wanted to write on one of the Puranas. And in the Puranas, there's a story of Bhagavan Shiva. Bhagavan Shiva went to this Dwaruka Vana because there were these people, they're called Purva Mimamsakas, they're called Karmakandis. And what this means is, they were always reliant on karma. They thought that karma can do everything. Everything is by karma only. Everything is by your action. Whatever your action is, you get the result. Whatever you do, it will come back to you. And they were heavily reliant on karma. They had no sense of God, no sense of a supreme being, no sense of anything greater than karma. Their whole life was focused on that. So they would perform rituals to get good karma. And that's all they would do. They would live their lives to get good karma, forget God, forget Supreme Being, forget anything like that. We don't believe in it. We just believe in our own effort. And there are many people like that also today. So Bhagavan Shiva wanted to teach them a lesson. So one day, when they were performing their rituals, he came as a handsome beggar. And all the wives of the ritualists went after Bhagavan Shiva. And so they were frantic. They said, who is this person? Why is he taking away our wives? Meantime, Bhagavan Vishnu came as Mohini avatar. And so they got deluded by her. It was it was a tag team effort. This is what the gods do to teach us a lesson, a tag team effort. And that Mohini avatar disappeared, and they were frantic. They knew this is a trick by the gods. And they went to try and look for that beggar who was really Shiva. And they tried to defeat him. They tried put an elephant in front of him, tiger, their spears, everything they tried. But he could not be defeated. And in the end, Bhagavan Shiva revealed his identity and blessed them with knowledge. And said that you think karma is ultimate, but actually there is something greater far beyond karma. And so that is how this teaching starts. Now, in the Puranas, the lesson that Bhagavan Shiva had given was not there. It was not there in the Puranas. So this devotee went to Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi ji and said, you please fill out the lesson that Bhagavan Shiva gave. And so that is how he wrote Upadesha Sara. He wrote it first in Tamil, then he translated it into Sanskrit. Right? So this is the background of the text. Yeah? So now we can go ahead and start the text. Now we'll go with the first verse. And this is very nice because it's in a sing-song tune. So all these verses are very easy to chant, to pronounce. So I'll chant and then you can repeat after me. Karturajñaya prapyate phalam. Karturajñaya prapyate phalam.
Karturajñaya prapyate phalam.
Karma kim param karma tajjadam.
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 Recite together.
Karturajñaya prapyate phalam. Karma kim param karma tajjadam.
Okay, so this is the first verse. And first we'll see word to word, then I'll explain it a little bit. So, kartuhu. Kartuhu means of the doer, right? Agnyaya. Agnyaya actually. Agnyaya, by the command of the doer. So, karturagnyaya means by the command of the doer. Prapyate phalam. The fruit is gained. Phalam is fruit. Prapyate, the fruit is gained. Karma kim param. How is karma supreme? Karma tajjadam. Karma is inert. Action is inert. So by the command of the creator of the world, the fruits of action are gained. Then how is action the all-supreme reality? It is not. Action is inert. So now let us think about this verse. Before we come to Karmavadis, let us look at a group of people called Paristhiti-vadi. Paristhiti-vadi means those who depend on situations. Okay, so this is the classification. Type 1 of people, they depend on situations. What does that mean? Means that they want to fix every situation that is not conducive to them. And that's their main goal in life, right? So they're staying somewhere and they don't like the place, let's move. Let's move, let's go somewhere. They're around somebody, they're around people there, they don't like the person, okay, go to somebody else. Right? They go to a doctor and the doctor tells them, you have this disease, I don't like you doctor, I'm going to another doctor. Huh? And so these people are called Paristhitivad, wherein they keep changing the situation. They keep changing the situation. They're not about changing themselves. They will change the situation. Because they believe that there's something wrong with the world. It should be conducive to how I want it. Everything should be conducive to how I want to live my life. And if it's not, it should change. So this place should change, this should change, that should change, everything should change. But they never look at themselves. So whenever the setup is wrong or is not conducive, they get upset. No, setup is not conducive, they get upset. It's called Paristhitivad. And many of us are like this. Many of us are like this. Now little higher is what we call the Karmavadis. So they believe that it's not the situation that's upsetting. It is me. If there is something wrong with my life, it is because of me. I have done something and therefore all I am doing is reaping the results of my actions. So something not conducive is happening. I understand it's because of my past karma. I get it. I understand. And therefore I will work on doing good karma. And this is how they live their life. And this is also, a lot of us are also in this level. And this is good to some extent because we're not blaming other people. We understand that there's something that we had done. We're reaping the results. And therefore this is how the situation is. It's absolutely okay. And if I want better things to happen, then I must do good in this world. I must do good. Now the limitation here is that they forget God. So those who depend solely on karma, what happens is they tend to be control freaks. All New Yorkers are control freaks. So very easy for us to understand. That they think they can control everything. They can control how things are going to turn out. They can control how their children are going to be, how their family is. They can control what's going to happen to their wealth. They can control everything. And so they put everything into karma. But guess what? They can't control everything. Because there's something far greater than you and me. And that is called Bhagavan Ramana Maharshi. So by the command of God, we get the results of our actions. Not by what we want, not by just the effort we put, but by the command of God. What does this mean? Now, very beautifully in the book, it says, there are 3 factors. So if you see in the first verse, the 1, 2, 3, the 4th paragraph, the 3rd paragraph, says 3 factors are necessary for gaining results of any action. 3 factors. Doer of the action, karta, the instrument of the action, karana, and that act itself, kriya. Okay, so there are 3 factors. So now, let us see. I am reading this book. Okay, so I am the doer, right? And I am reading this book. So the reading is the action. And how am I reading? With my eyes. Now, who can decide the result of the action? So there are 3 things. There's the doer, there's the act, and there's the instrument. The doer is me. The act is reading. And the instrument is with my eyes. Who can decide the result? Can the eyes decide the result? No. The eyes are inert. So somebody has to employ the eyes. Right? Eyes cannot decide what's going to happen. Can reading decide? No. Reading is just an action. It's just an action. It needs somebody to do that action. right? Can I decide what's going to happen when I read this book? Can I decide? Can I decide that I'm going to read 3 paragraphs and I'm going to completely get exactly every word down to the T? Can I decide? I can think that, but an interruption can come, which is out of my control, right? Somebody can come in the middle and distract me. Or I can get a phone call in between, or a WhatsApp message. So many things can come and distract me. So I cannot decide exactly what's going to happen. The eyes cannot decide what's going to happen. The reading cannot decide what's going to happen. Who decides the results of our actions? It is that cosmic mind, which we call Bhagavan. So we cannot control anything. We can only contribute to it. Now, for example, we plan to come to Bal Vihar on time. Yes, plan to come to Bal Vihar on time. So you leave early, everything's set, breakfast is had, kids are ready, everything is set. So I plan it. Now what happens? Subway delay. Now, can you control that? No, right? Subway delay, so therefore I cannot control that I'm going to get there on time. Or something happens with the weather, it starts snowing, everything slows down. So the idea is there are too many factors which are beyond our control. And because there are too many factors beyond our control, then we don't have control over the results. Too many factors. Now let's do an exercise together. You are coming to Bal Vihar on Saturday. Tell me how many factors will be out of your control. Let's try to name at least 10. How many factors will be out of your control? You got up. You are ready. You've done everything you had to do. How many factors are out of your control? Traffic. Okay. Children. That's a big one. Children, right? What else? Weather. You said yes. The door is locked. Yeah. It happens, right? What else?
Another event, so the elevators.
The elevators, right?
Oh, today.
Yeah. What else? What else could happen? Right? So many things. So the first verse really tells us here that any result of any action is beyond your control. It's beyond your control. It is in the control of Kartuhu. It's in control of God. Kartur Agneya Prapyati Phala. And those of us who just rely on action, that only if we do this, then this will come. Only if we do this, will come. And everything is in our control. He says that will not happen. Because action is finite. Action is limited. Action is inert. There are 2 people playing a tennis game. Both of them want to win. Can they decide that? No. Right? It's on the higher being that decides. So he says here, think about that cosmic being who is in charge of all of the results of all of our